Second. So I think three, four, two, one, and
Oh,
we are live. Joel, I'll let you introduce Russell. What is that? It's like you're putting the cat in our
cat.
face.
The cat's bum is now in camera.
All right. Welcome everyone to another Art and the Algorithm show with me, Hussein Halak, founder of Momentable and CEO. I forgot that. And Joel, who's my co-host, award-winning author, and Joel has invited his dear friend Russell, who's an artist and an entrepreneur, and he's going to introduce him. So we're going to have a great conversation today. It's been a great week altogether. Kind of a few. We did a deep dive on Open AI's Dev Day. It's been a great week because it's mostly about me, so that's usually a good week, at least for me. Joel hated it. So
Yeah.
Joel, why don't this is your day. You brought your great friend and we saw some of the artwork. So over to you, Joel. Make the introduction and then get us started.
All right. So yeah, today's guest is Russell Macrae, dear friend. I know we haven't talked a lot, but Russell holds a very close place in my heart just because he's such an awesome guy, such an amazing entrepreneur, creative artist, you name it. We actually were talking about um, kind of like Renaissance people. And I guess you can't really say Renaissance men anymore. But I would classify Russell as one of those people who's just really, yeah, like great at, it seems like he's great at everything. Mostly about dressing. Like he's such like the most amazing, like he just carries himself uh, in such a great way. So we met in BNI. He is the founder of Macrae Portraits. He does primarily portraits of houses, but also pets. He does greeting cards. Probably missing something. But yeah, we met oh boy, what, five? Has it been 5, 6 years, Russell? It's
Yeah,
been been
sounds
been a
about
while.
right.
But
Russell, I don't know what you did to Joel, but he never talks this good about me.
no,
And
it's true. Yeah. I will
so
I will tell the
I'm now
story.
curious. I want to know what the hell have you done? Uh,
But yeah,
yeah,
so
great.
Russell, welcome and just fill in any gaps that I have missed.
Yeah, would love to hear from you, Russell. Welcome to our show. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. I don't really know how to follow up with that. So yeah, it's I've been. Where do you want me to start? Let's
Maybe
let's
like
let's.
How would your friends introduce you? Like
oh,
aside from Joel, not this friend. Let's say your other friends
a
that we
worse
don't know.
friend
What do they say
than
about
me.
you? Yeah. That people don't usually know, like maybe that people know you as an entrepreneur, artist. How do people who are close to you know you the
You know,
most?
actually, I do hear what Joel said quite often, not all summed up into one big beautiful package like that. Maybe they'll pepper it with one or two of those things, but I have like that actually it's nice to. I feel like I was seen by Joel in that description, but I'm an artist, I'm an entrepreneur. um I've become incredibly spiritual over the last 3 years, so I that's kind of really how I focus, how I say focus my energy is that.
Nice.
Maybe can you talk about a little bit about the founding of McCrae Portraits and how that
Mm.
came about?
Sure. Well, that's a good that's a story. So how a long story super short is basically I was an artist my whole life, and I grew up with a paint. I was born with a paintbrush in my hand, which must have been hard for labor for my mom, but that's the way it was. And so I was fourth generation artist, and I was always out to make my mark in the world with art. Went to art school, did my thing, went away traveling for a year in Asia after high school, came back. Um, I ended up putting art on the side and pushing art away and pushing art away and going after what people would assume is the responsible thing to do. And so I ran an internet company and then sold that, and then I um started renovating houses, because I grew up on a little Gulf island of only like 12 people, and so I homesteaded there, and we lived off the land. So I knew how to use my hands, and how to no, I wasn't scared of anything. And so after selling my internet company, I decided I'd buy a house, and I bought a house and a sledgehammer, and I just started tearing apart the house, and then I renovated it, and I did that with 5 houses. And then every time I'd sell a house, I'd give my real estate agent a $30,000 check, and they would give me a $7 bottle of Copper Moon wine as a gift. And I'm like, well, that's just great, and thanks a lot. And then I'd flip the next house, and I'd get a new realtor, someone shiny and pretty that I met at a party, and I kept doing that. And then my last house, for dramatic flair, I hit the last nail in the house, and suddenly I felt a twinge in my chest. I'm like, oh, what is that? And uncharacteristically of any man, I went to the doctor and I asked, and they did an ultrasound, and they found that half of my chest was a tumor, size of a football. And that was my first brush with anything, any mortality, anything difficult. And it really shook me up. And I decided that I was going to I really wanted to focus on what brought me passion. And I really wanted to just live a life, because I realized how brief life was. And so I wanted to live a life that I felt that I was actually truly expressed, which I'm learning now is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. And it's actually very rare to be able to live that kind of a life, especially around your career. And so I thought, well, what's important? Well, I love real estate, I love art, and I love business. And so I thought, well, wouldn't it be really nice if, instead of getting a bottle of wine or a gift card to the keg, what if I actually got a painting of my house, the one I house? I worked hard at that house. It was a really beautiful moment for me. What if I celebrated that? What if I got a painting of that house I could hang on the wall? And I thought, well, if I had that on the wall, I'd think about that realtor every single day. And so I painted one. And then I showed a realtor, and they liked it. I painted another one, and they liked it. And I painted another one, and they liked it. And now we're at 15,000 house portraits that I've done across Canada for real estate, realtors, mortgage brokers, credit unions, all across Canada. And so now I get to live that life that 5-year-old dreamed of, and here I am now.
Holy crap. Joel, you weren't joking about the Russell being, I don't know where to start, Russell. So it's like this is the long story short version. I think we need like 3 hours to dive into this. Realtor slash artist slash businessman. I don't think these will meet, especially realtors. But let's take one by one. You said you're fourth generation artist.
Yeah.
Funny enough, remember, Joel, we had Shane, and he's like a third generation salesman.
Yeah, that's true.
So can you elaborate a little bit on that? Like, how was it growing up with a house where you said it sounds like your father or mother are artists, and their father or mother before them were an artist, and before them. So what was it like? And were you kind of like, felt compelled to do art, or just liked it? Or did it start, wanting to be close to your parents? Tell us a little bit about how that was.
It's just, it was one of those, I never really thought about it at the time. All I knew is that I just couldn't stop myself from doing it. I just, sometimes I get a lot of people when I tell them what they do, and they're like, oh, I would love to have a life where I could live my passion. And so usually the question I ask them is, what is it when you were a child that you would spend your time doing that time just slipped away and had no importance? And they have to think really far back into what that really was. And it takes a lot of discovery to get there. And I'm like, well, you could start there. You could start at that place. And for me, it was art. It was unquestionably art. So that's just how comfortable. It was just a piece of me. And when I got my tumor, I really think the reason why I got my tumor, and I'm not a doctor, but I really think I got my tumor because I suppressed all of my unspoken life into my chest. I would push it down, I'd push it down, and since becoming an artist, I can feel that space opened up. I can feel that I don't push things into that space where the tumor was. So it was just a matter of having to do it.
How how did you obviously felt like some external pressure to go and be like quote normal and do like almost like a regular job. Was that sort of like an outside influence, or do you think that was more of like just like your something inside of you saying this is not gonna, is it like creativity is not sustainable, or I can't be creative because I'm not gonna make enough money doing it?
I don't think we need enough. I don't, I don't really care about the outside pressure. I think we put enough inside pressure and we talk poorly about ourselves enough that I don't even need to hear anything outside because I'm already hard enough of myself as it is. Um, but it did happen that way. Like, I went to art school and top of my class because I was just so passionate. Like, and and then while I was in art school, every single weekend, every Sunday, I would go to the biggest art gallery in town. It was called the Fran Willis Gallery in Victoria. And every weekend, I would haul up all my paintings to the owner and say, "Do you want to have a show of my work?" No. Go back next weekend. How about this work? No. How about this work? No. 2 years. She kept saying no, kept saying no, kept saying no. I graduate, made a body of work. How about now? She's like, fine. And she showed my work. I busted my ass, made the whole show, sold one painting, and I realized it was just a tremendous amount of energy. And I don't know, I just, you let go of your dream, and then as you start letting go, then time slips away and it becomes harder and the momentum's getting lost, and you get caught up in the nuances and of this new life, and the next thing you know, it's been years and you're like, well, now I've got guitars behind me that I haven't played in 20 years, but that was such a passionate thing. How does that happen? So it's unglamorous as that.
So give us a sense of the timeline. When did you, let's say, the life that you're living right now,
Mm.
when did you actually accomplish that? Was it like 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 10 years ago, when you actually did that transition to being on the path that you now enjoy and kind of
Yeah.
um,
That was 11 years ago.
11 years ago? And
Yeah.
was it the what was the most pivotal? Is it the cancer that kind of forced you to reflect on things, or was it something else that got you to, you know, to walk us through, like, what was it like to make that transition and make that choice? Was it like a split seconds, like that's it,
Yeah.
this is what, please
Yeah.
walk
Split
us through
sec.
that.
It was split second. It was almost, yeah, it was in the time you can make a decision, that's when it was chosen. Like it was that fast. And it
Mm.
wasn't cancer. I guess it was to an extent, but I didn't have cancer. I just had a tumor. And when they removed it, I just had to heal. So it was fine. So it was great.
Oh.
But
Oh, so it was a benign tumor, or what?
yeah,
Like,
benign
ah,
tumor.
okay. Sorry, when you said tumor immediately. So
Of
thankfully, thank
course.
God you're not, it's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
cancer. Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Um, no, it really was just as simple as it was made and it was made in 1 second flat. And and then I knew what I wanted, but then I had to create what I actually wanted to do. And I didn't really know. Um, but as corny as it sounds, it feels like the universe kind of just opened up for me and said, all right, here you go. Like, you're ready for it. And off we went.
Joel, you seem like you have something to
What's
ask.
What do you think you learn most from your parents in sort of like the creative realm
Mm.
or your family in general, maybe?
Well, there wasn't really, there's a lot of ways to express creativity. And I think one of them was the fact that at 13 years old, my family sold everything they had and we moved. They piled a family of six into a pickup truck, and we arrived on Hornby Island, that little island that I was saying. We arrived on the island in a fully treed lot. We had to cut down the trees to drive the truck into there, and we lived in the back of the pickup truck. And then we cut down the trees, and we borrowed a portable mill, and we milled down the trees and started framing a house. We had some extra lumber left over, so we traded that for a goat. And then we milked the goat, and we traded that goat for a little piglet. And then we lived entirely off the land, no water, no power, no nothing, for years and years and years. And what that taught me is you can do anything. Like, you can do, as long as you wake up in the morning and you start doing and you put it into action and you start walking towards what you want to have, you can just do anything. Like, it's, and so that I think is one of the greatest gifts that was given to me. And it was, and for us to have that life, we had to be incredibly creative. We couldn't just cash in a paycheck and do the things like we normally do. Like it was a highly creative life, not in the creativity you think of, like painting
to
or
figure things
music.
out.
You have to figure things out. You have to think outside of what is normal per se, and how to creatively, how to live your life in a creative way. And by having that sort of idea of how to live a creative life, you can apply that to either being a stockbroker or an artist or whatever you want to help you to acquire that. So I think that's a really strong part of who I am.
It sounds like it's very deeply emotional for you when you talk about these things. So if you don't mind, I want to kind of unpack it a little bit. Can you, a lot of people would look at your life, as you said, they would look at it's like, how did you get that? And what do I need to do? If you look back and say, here are the key things that, let's say, you said, let's say, being creative, figuring things out. If you were to distill the core skill set or mindset that you had developed or had to acquire sometimes because of the situation that made you the person that you are today, what would those be? What would you attribute them to? Even though you're looking backwards, sometimes it's easier to look, hindsight is 2020. Looking backwards at your life, what are the core things that kind of made you be able to have the life that you are enjoying today?
Yeah. I have two kids, and these are conversations that I have often, too often for them, not enough often for me. And that is, the first thing I tell my children is, if I can impart anything, is to monetize your passion. So that's obviously the center of it all, is to find your passion and to monetize it. And through that, acquiring business skills. But I think one of the biggest things, and this is my constant battle, is overcoming fear. Fear runs most of our lives. And I think it's just the constant battle of fear that I think is something I'm the most proud of. And I have to do it every day, right? I've got to get on that phone. Like after this podcast, I have to jump on the phone and start calling some of my customers who haven't used me in 2 years, and bring them back. And every dial is it's fear based. So I think overcoming fear and having that sense of purpose and that passion, and if it is your passion, it's hard. It's even hard then too, because I'm monetizing my passion. I feel like it's kind of intertwined with who I am in a way. Like I'm not trying to sell a root canal or something like that. I'm actually trying to sell my own brand and my own self. Like you being a writer, Joel, you know what I'm talking about. Like it's you feel like you are more represented in the no's that you get. So yeah.
Joel, I have so
Has
many questions. Please jump in, but I don't want to
um
dominate the question. It's so good.
does the fear get easier? I mean, you had your internet company. I know your internet company was super successful. You sold it, you flipped houses, made a good living there. You make a great living with Macrae portraits. Does it get easier, or is it still like that constant
It gets harder.
battle? Yeah, it gets harder.
It gets harder.
Why is that?
Um, I don't know. I think that when you're young and you're just giving her, there's almost no fear. But I feel the most fearful I ever was. And as Joel said, when I was very, very fortunate. I started an internet company back in 1997, back when the internet was, you'd hear radio stations saying, go to http://www dot, because they had to even describe what the hell, how to even go to a web page. Now it's in your contact lenses, like it's everywhere. But back then it was nowhere. And so then I was very lucky. I was able to sell that to PayPal. Um, and so I had a big success when I was young. After that success, I think I was the most fearful in my entire life, because I defined myself on that success, that artificial accolades, that I created this really fragile egoic sense of self that was built on success. And I would lead with that to everyone because I was younger, and it didn't, and then I became terrified of doing anything else because I didn't want to be that quote sense of self of success anymore. And so I spent about 8 years in a place of paralysis and fear. And it became a terrible place. It became actually a curse. Um, yeah.
Can you elaborate a little bit on your definition of success and how that changed from the younger self to today? I'm sensing some of that in the conversation and how you're talking about certain things and what you said you say to your kids, for example. Um, but if what was I mean, at the very beginning, you probably were very happy when you sold the company and you got a little bit of money, and probably you thought, hey, I made it. And then you said you were fearful. Walk us through, let's say, your definition of success and how that shifted and changed to today.
Well, I think this is the joy of getting older, and if we're able to take advantage of this growth, this is probably my favorite subject. Is this question, because what I consider success now is, it's all internal. I went through 3 years ago. I went through a huge life change again, and COVID, and like we all did. Like there was a global shift, right? And I was able, and before COVID came, I also had another big shift in my life. Like I went through a divorce and all that fun stuff. But I I've discovered Buddhism, and because I was flailing, and my sense of self had existential crisis, and I didn't even know what was going on. And I found some wisdom in Buddhism. I'm like, well, this is interesting, and let's keep pursuing. And now it's been 3 years, and I spend probably a quarter of my day just focusing on that and how to. So I define success now. For me, what I consider my most important a pursuit of success is to make sure that I keep divorcing myself from my egoic, false, man-made sense of self. And if I can do that, which is the opposite of what I did when I was younger, when I got that money, when I sold the company, I was all about that. I was all about the outside and all that was my pursuit. My entire pursuit was built on that. And now I'm the opposite, I'm hoping. So that's what I spend my time on is how to remove myself from my ego and to be someone full of love and passion and compassion.
Very cool. Joel?
I kind of want to like that's so profound, but I kind of want to move on to um I guess your entrepreneurial journey, because I know we've had so many talks in the past. One of the things that you are great at is systems and building like systems within a company. And that's not something that comes like, especially me, I feel like, and it could be just um my outlook. I'm like, oh, I'm a creative. I don't do systems and I don't do that sort of thing. So maybe you could talk a little bit about how you learned about how to build like a company and systems and all that stuff, and like specifically like for creative people who may struggle with that a little bit.
Yeah. And that is the way I look at systems are systems, a well-run system provides me the time to be more creative. So I have an idea with my company that if I do something like 3 or 4 times, I look at how I'm going to systemize it. And so, and every time I build a system, I have a document called the Bible, which is my company Bible. And I put it into procedure documents. I have video. I have it. So basically I can give this Bible to anyone and they could run my company. I'm the only person working in it right now. But I don't want to be. So for me, systems, I think, is probably one of the is incredibly important. Does that answer that question?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you as an artist like get involved in systems and you said your beginning was very with an artistic family, and generally, I mean, that's definitely a stereotype, but when you talk about creative people, systems are not the thing that comes to your mind. It's like, yeah, they're usually all over the place. They're usually, sporadic. Artist is all about, mood, passion and stuff like that, not systems, not being organized. And whenever they're depicted in any kind of movie or film or whatever, it's like always mayhem happening, and somehow they were. So tell us a little bit, is that something that innately yours? Is it something you had to develop to kind of systemize your way to success? How did you get into that?
Yeah, I had to do that because the whole idea of following just your mood and when the creativity strikes, it's for the movies. But if you ever listen to a podcast with Stephen King, his secret is he just writes every day.
Yeah, Joel does that all the time. He's like, he's the most system.
Yeah,
like he writes religiously.
Yeah,
like,
and that's a system, right? Like that's a system. It's that writing every day from such and such a time and having tea at such and such a time, and like that is a system. And I found that without a system, then I'm just a like a passenger to my whim, and my whim usually likes just Netflix and
so many good movies to watch.
But
what are the components of your system, like let's say that you think helped you the most and that people can learn from? There are some stuff obviously that are completely yours in the sense that they work for you, what would you, if you had, let's say, an upcoming artist right now or an upcoming entrepreneur, uh, everybody's path is different, but there are some kind of unique, timeless truths, if you wish. We have the month of Da Vinci right now, and we're trying to extract from his timeless principles, like, for example, being always curious. These are timeless principles that open up the door for someone, open their mind. So, what are some of the timeless principles that you relied on and that you recommend, or sometimes even failed to rely on, that you felt the impact of, let's say, not doing it, that you would definitely recommend for upcoming artists or creatives in general, that would help them in their lives, achieving whatever version of success they want for themselves?
Mm-hmm. Well, not sure if it aligns with what you're asking, but I think one of the most important things anyone can do is work on their communication skills. And how do you relay what you're trying to create as quickly and as deeply with another person in a way that activates their curiosity, so much so that they feel a certain level to be compelled to want to tether themselves to your endeavor. That's a really, really hard thing to do, because around that, you have to know what you want. You have to know what to ask for. You have to be really, really clear in what you want. And that's the hardest thing to do. That most people, that's what they don't know what they want.
That's so good. I want to just stop for a second because this is so important. So what you're saying is one of the most important thing, aside from, like, the working on yourself and developing yourself, is developing that skill to enroll somebody else in what you're doing, to
100%.
to become your biggest supporter, if you wish.
That's right. That's right. And not just to support you, because people don't really think about you, but to support themselves and see you as the tool to help them to grow themselves. And this is how I grew the house portraits, right? Because I don't just talk about how beautiful the paintings are. I don't talk about how much I love to paint. I talk about how my house portrait, when they give that gift to their clients, how their clients are going to feel, how it creates reciprocity, how it hangs in a wall, and they talk about the realtor. Like, I really work in enrolling them into how I can benefit them. And then that's how they'll feel compelled to want to work with me. So it took a long time to figure that one out, and I work on it all the time, even still.
Hmm. Did you have any good mentors or people you looked up to? Like, because these are all like really amazing skills, I think.
Yeah.
Obviously, creative people will definitely need, but pretty much anybody really needs in their life. So, like, was there, yeah, any special person that that taught you this, or kind of books, that sort of thing, that kind of made you realize that these are important skills to have?
As a kid, sorry, Mom, if you're listening, but as a kid, not not really. It was really hand to mouth. So we didn't have a lot of time for that. Um, I the first thing I ever discovered that blew my brain was how to win friends, influence people. It's like everyone should read that. But the one thing that really taught me was, I used to, as when I was younger, I would dominate a conversation. I would steal the energy. I would suck the energy out of a room. I'd pull everything towards me. That's what I was taught. And then I learned through that book that the secret to really building rapport with someone is actually just to listen. And then it's like, you can go to a party and you can just meet with someone and you ask some questions about themselves for 2 hours. Tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. And they'll tell you all about themselves. And at the end, they'll walk away and they're like, oh my goodness, you're the most interesting man I've ever met. But you've said nothing. You've only talked about them. So that saved my life.
Yeah. That's so true. I used to think that before learning how to listen well, and I took coaching courses on how to become a coach, it's a certified coach, and listening at the first time I listened that you can listen on so many levels. That listening is not what we learn. It's like, yeah, I'm listening. It's like, no, you're not listening. And you, once you develop that skill, there's no way you see the world completely different. And as you said, people start like people will be mesmerized by you even though you're not saying anything. I used to think like my ability to speak, obviously when you're on stage there is something, but there's something about listening to others and listening to the world that just changes everything. And it's so bad that we don't teach that skill to people at school. People think that they listen, but we have to learn that so much further in our lives to learn that we don't listen and we need to listen so much better. When did you start to apply that and kind of realize that?
Probably yesterday.
Every day, right?
Every day. And this is why I'm loving this right now, because it's all about me. But no, it's
Tell me more.
Don't worry, we have 20 minutes to make it about me.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry, you're cutting out. What's that? No, um it was, again, it was that tumor. That's what turned everything upside down for me. It was the start. That was the start. And that's when I think I started to become a man, was when that, like, when that started to happen, when I started to become the person I always wanted to be. And that took there's a lot of ways through that. Active listening is one of them. But yeah, I think it all started then. And then the pursuit of the spirituality to realize that I'm not as important as I thought I was, and all that stuff. It gave me a deeper seat, made me more relaxed.
What are some of like when you started Macrae Portraits, what are some like of the early lessons? Because you know, I'm sure that there's a lot of similarities, like in terms of like you're starting a company, you learned that already, but there's probably some differences as well. And so what sort of maybe surprised you or was different about starting Macrae Portraits?
Well, Macrae Portraits was interesting because a lot of people have never seen it before. They didn't even know, this whole idea of giving house portrait as a marketing tool. Really, a lot of people hadn't heard about it, and so I had to learn how to relay the idea, like I said. So that was really difficult. Um, yeah, I don't really know. I think probably it's in there somewhere.
Hmm. So sort of like just selling, marketing, I guess communication is part of marketing, but in terms of, like was do you feel that you had a good grasp on all those kind of like skills from before?
Oh, hell no. No, not at all. No. Before that, I was an internet company. I hid behind a shroud of a keyboard. Like, I didn't have to do any of that. I didn't have to stand on stage. I didn't BNI was a huge shift for me.
Hmm.
Um, Having to speak in front of 60 people. Actually,
Really?
BNI actually wasn't one of the biggest, was actually, there's one reason why BNI shifted for me, is because what BNI was about. Before that, I was always about, look at me, I'm doing house portraits, come give me money, yada yada yada, like dog and pony show. And then what it ended up being was BNI was all about how you help other people first. And then by helping other people, apparently they help you. which is true. I didn't know that was the case. I'm like, no, 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 it doesn't work that way. You know, no, I gotta just take care of myself. But I learned that if you help other people and you're a stand for other people, that through that they become a stand for you. And that was a very difficult process for me to learn.
And for those of us who are listening that don't know what we're talking about, BNI is Business Network International. It's the largest networking organization in the world. And the idea is that local chapters is made up of small business people that come together and let's say 20 people. And basically what you do is you train the 20 people on your business in more ways than one. And they bring you referrals based off of their building a trust with you. So the structure is based so that you can build trust with each other. And when you've built enough trust, you can go and let's say, for example, I'll go and if I was in Russell's chapter, I would go out and say to others and find what Russell's looking for. So he would tell me, let's say, I'm looking for realtors or let's say people who have a house who want a portrait, and he tells me what his ideal audience is. And I look at my network and I invite people to introduce them because I trust him. I built a trust with him. So it's a small, tight knit group. And the idea is givers gain. So if you go and give, a good book to read about that is Giver's Gain by Ivan Meisner, Dr. Ivan Meisner, who's the founder of BNI. Or you can read The Go Giver by, oh my God, I know the author. Tip of my tongue, I'll remember the author, but Go Giver is a great book as opposed to the Go Getter. And the approach is if you go out to the world and start giving and adding value to people, people will resonate with you and will come to you. And the idea of BNI is all about, if you go give to others, you are promoting and bringing referrals to others. Others will bring you referrals, and it's all based on trust. It's a very, very unique idea. I've been a member. I've been a regional director as well when I was in Dubai. And true to what you said, it also changed my life drastically. It's the first time I always thought that business is here, and in business you have to be a shark and a go-getter, and it's me, and you have to fend for yourself. And in life you can be nice and you be kind to people, and it's the first time where they collapse the two concepts together and they brought together and say, no, you can actually, in business, you can go out and help people and add value to people, which is now, by the way, a more, let's say, spread out, a more acceptable let's say, concept. If you look at the business books 20 years ago, it was all about, cutthroat, go-getter, hustle, that kind of thing. Whereas now it's really about, kindness. I even heard what's his name, Gary V. He said Gary V is very, very, on it, very, very on stage. He's like, pushing people to do things. And he said, the idea that nice people finish last is bullshit. You need to be nice in business. It's actually an advantage. So just to give people a little bit of a kind of context to what you're saying, and I can completely resonate with you. Was it the same, like, kind of for you before BNI? Did you have that separation of who you are in business and who you are in person? Did you have that, and did you find a conflict, or it wasn't like that for you?
Well, I grew up with a single mom and my sister and myself, and we grew up really poor. Like, there kids would do clothing drives for my sister and myself. So I remember showing up at school with my t-shirt said Timmy's trip to Disneyland, and Timmy's like, ha ha, and he punches me in the face. Like, so I grew up thinking you had to scrap and fight and claw and steal and beg and hoard and hold tight and protect and that money doesn't grow on trees, and everything was harder. And that's fine. It suited our family very well. We got through it all perfectly. But I held on to that belief, and I thought that was the way. And I was I graduated in '89, and "Greed is good" was a popular statement on the movie Wall Street, like things like that, right? So going into BNI and coming to a place where actually let's just turn that on its head entirely, and let's look at helping other people was I didn't understand. I was there for 2 years and I didn't even get it until the very end. To be honest with you, it took me a long time. Actually, I think it was until I even left BNI that I actually really understood what it's about. And so, it's been the hardest transformation of my life, is that shift.
Surprising for me because one of my memories of you at BNI was like, there was times when speakers dropped out or would not show up, and you were always like the go-to person. And so it would be like the Wednesday morning of, it's like, oh, Russell, we need somebody to fill in this 7-minute spot. Will you do it? And you would always say yes. And I remember, like, I think even like 1 month you had like three speeches that 1 month. Usually you do once a year or once every 6 months, right? But you had done three just because people dropped off, and they're always like very different and dynamic and unique, and you always like touched on different things, and you were always very good at communicating what you wanted to communicate. So like none of that seemed like, it all seemed very natural from the outside.
Well, I appreciate that, but that actually sums up my point, because I really wanted to talk about myself.
But your
Right?
speeches weren't all like, most of
But
them weren't about you. Like you had like you
no,
talked about BNI
you're right.
philosophy a lot.
But I was talking about myself. I was still in the same. I was still in the same mindset,
Yeah.
right? Um, yeah.
What's
So I relate to what you're saying, Russell, when it comes to being young. We while being a teenager, I wore hand-me-downs from my next door neighbors. So they would
Mm.
throw their clothes. I would wear those hand-me-downs because we were poor as well. So I completely relate to that, and it's kind of, a life where, let's say, I'm comfortable and at least like I can buy what I want to, even at a certain level. Even sneakers were like, oh my god, that's a far-fetched things, like buying sneakers, like knockoff sneakers were like, oh my god, this is like the gift of the year. I would have to work my ass off. The first guitar I got was a broken guitar from a cousin that didn't want to use it, but that's the only guitar I could get, and I had to beg. I had to get all A's in my first year of university to get my dad to buy me my first guitar, which was $100 guitar, by the way. I was like, so I completely relate to that. When you look right now at your life, and let's say you said you're blessed, you're comfortable, you're at a place where you're grateful. um what were what is it that you want people to know that are in your position right now? The world is not easy. The world is not, welcoming. We wish we live in a different world where people, can pursue their passion, can do what they want, but life situation push you in a certain direction. I had to work very early because, compared to where I was, I had to work through university just to get to pay the commute to the university. um Not even like, university is free, almost free in Syria, but I had to pay the commute. I couldn't afford the commute. I had to work to do that. So right now people do go through hard time. It's getting harder for newer generations. It's not easier. Yeah, they have all of the, let's say, the access, if you wish, but none of the support. Like the support they don't get. So what what are you teaching your kids? Let's say, what are you leaving them with, that they can survive regardless of how you can help them, or regardless of not needing help? What are you instilling in them?
Well, I want them to understand that life is suffering and life is hard. And it's through the suffering that actually the real juice happens. And if you don't go into that deep place of suffering, that deep hardship, you're missing out on the opportunity to get the growth on the back end. And I used to spend my whole life dodging suffering and dodging the hardship and staying clear of that and being terrified of it. And then I was forced into it, and I realized that that actually was the beautiful place. So I really try to impart, when I see people in suffering, I want them to take time to actually enjoy it and relish in it and roll around in it and take their time through it, and not try to take a pill or a drink or something to rush themselves out of that situation. Because within that space, that's the gift. So if you can stay there and not be scared of it, but actually walk towards that place, knowing that at the end you will get what the deep rewards. I would really like to impart that wisdom on my children and to anyone else that sees a life of suffering, what they think of suffering, by pursuing their dreams or by pursuing something that's unorthodox. But it would, if I could plant a seed in their head, I would like to plant that idea into their head so they can run into it with reckless abandonment of a 5-year-old.
Nice. That's definitely something well profound, and also what I'm getting from you, and tell me if this is kind of resonates, which is, instead of trying to I spend my life trying sometimes to pretend that nothing, like everything's okay when everything's not. You know, like you know that meme where the little dog sitting and everything is burning around them and say it's this is fine. There's that
Yeah.
meme. So it's like that. So that's one way of escapism, or thinking that tomorrow will be better just by being better, which might be. But what I'm hearing from you is being present to what's happening right now and dealing with it is probably the best way that you can do around it. Like there's no, when it's hard, it's hard. Listen, I definitely resented anybody that come to me and say, you know what, it'll be better, go through it. I resented that when people told me, because like, you're not living my life. It's like there were many times where I lived my life, and there were times when I was suicidal. I wanted to kind of end it all.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing that somebody can get me out or say that's, oh, it's like all the good books and all the inspiration in the world didn't help me. What helped me is actually kind of first seeing the situation for what it is, and then dealing with it as it is. And that made it a little bit more bearable and made me able to kind of shift it. So that's what I'm getting from what you're saying. Just giving you, I want to give you the chance to also finish with your thought, if there is something different, or what are your take on this?
No, and then that's exactly right. And then and then just take that up belief and apply it to whatever you want to chase after for your dreams. Like, we're talking business here, and this, and how to monetize it. And so yeah, just know that it's hard, know that it's suffering, and don't squander that time and go after what you want. Like, because you just pick your hard. Life's hard no matter what you do. You might as well choose your passion.
Joel, let's go to
All right.
your famous rapid fire.
So
This has
I
been
think one
awesome
other
so
thing
far.
I didn't tell you about
Go
Russell
ahead. Yeah,
is that we end with rapid fire questions. So
too many
hopefully you're
surprises today.
prepared.
All right, I feel like I'm on Oprah. Fire
Yes,
away.
exactly. What is your go-to productivity hack?
Um, Early mornings.
Hmm. Last movie you watched?
I'm in the middle of watching Lost.
Oh, Lost. Interesting. Dream vacation destination.
Prague.
Oh, I've
Ah,
never been to Prague.
why
I hear it's
Prague?
really good.
Uh, Prague in the wintertime. It's full of castles. It's romantic.
Interesting.
Nice. One piece of tech you cannot live without.
It's the same thing. Piece of tech I want to be without is my phone.
Historical figure you'd like to meet.
Picasso.
Hmm. Let's
My,
see.
one of my favorite artists.
What's that?
One of my favorite artists.
Oh, wouldn't he be so fun
Of
to
all
hang out
times.
with him in the afternoon in Spain? Huh.
Favorite season of the year.
Fall.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Mine too. And best concert you have attended.
I've only really been to 3 concerts, so probably the Wiggles.
The Wiggles. Huh.
They're like a kids band. I I
The
don't I
Wiggles.
don't
I've
do
never heard of
concerts.
them.
That's I want to do more concerts,
There
so
we
I
go.
do concerts.
All right. We'll do
Funny,
one
my answer for
more.
that is my own concert, the best concert I've
Oh,
ever
yeah,
attended.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I could see that. That'd be great.
Favorite sports team.
Um, Van- the Vancouver team.
Any Vancouver team.
Anyway, it's so it sounds. I was going to say you look like me when when I'm asked that question. It's like favorite team, yeah, whatever the Vancouver team
Yeah.
can knock something.
Yeah.
Oh
Whitecaps.
my god, Brazil.
All right.
Brazil.
Brazil. Hey, that's a good team. All right. I will pass it over to Hussein. Why don't you close us off?
Absolutely. So, Russell, thank you very much for a great, I would say, heartfelt interview that we got to kind of talk really openly and honestly with you about who you are, how you feel about your work, how you feel about your life. And I think that's honestly really important. I know that sometimes people come and say, what are the best like business tips? Tell me what to do so I can go implement it and achieve
Mm,
success. And a lot of times I think one of the things that we want to focus on is everybody's journey is very different than others, and there are a lot of definitely tips that they can learn, and I'm sure I'm going to recommend that they follow you and connect with you and reach out to you. And at the same time, it's extremely important to know the kind of person that you're becoming throughout the journey, and to see how people deal with things. This is how we learn as people, and we learn from their lives. That's why we read biographies. That's why we read stories, because we want to. It's not just he did one, two, three and got success. That's a very boring life.
mhm.
We want the story. We want the meat. So thank you for sharing with us with an open heart and with transparency. Really enjoyed the conversation. Joel, thanks for inviting Russell. Great kind of selection as well. So for everyone, I'm gonna give Russell a minute to leave us with what they are. But as you know, we're here live every day of the week except weekends, which I'm gonna drag Joel some days. Like, yeah, let's do weekends as well.
No, no,
Let's
no,
not
no.
sleep. But yeah, every day at 11 a.m. PST, we're live at Art and the Algorithm, myself and Joel, and we're always bringing to you latest news in the art and culture and tech space. We do deep dives. We invite great people like Russell. And now, Russell, tell us, how can people help you and how they can connect with you? And final words you want to leave people with. Over to you.
Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure. And if people want to reach out to me, they can go to my website, which is macraeportraits.com. Um, yeah, it's just really as simple as that. And yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. All right, everyone. Uh, have yourself a brilliant Thursday, and we'll see you tomorrow for our fun close of the week where we look back at some of the best takeaways from the week and we have some fun. And Joel gets to make fun of me,
I do that
as he
daily.
usually likes
So.
to do. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.